Single father, fired on Christmas Eve, shared his last sandwich with a homeless woman. She was the company owner. A 32-year-old single father is sitting on a park bench on Christmas Eve at 6 p.m., holding his 4-year-old son Lucas on his lap, with exactly one sandwich in a paper bag, the last of their food until his final paycheck clears in 3 days, when he realizes he has to tell his son they're not having Christmas dinner this year. Marco Silva was fired that morning from his accounting job at Sterling Enterprises for restructuring purposes. The real reason, his manager Carlos wanted to hire his nephew instead. And with rent due in a week, no savings because everything goes to Lucas's asthma medication, and now no job, Marcos is calculating how many days they can survive on what's left in the apartment. Lucas tugs on his coat. "Papai, I'm hungry. Can we have the sandwich now?" Marcos is about to open the bag when he notices a woman sitting at the other end of the bench, older, maybe 50s, wearing clothes that have seen better days, shivering in the December cold without a proper coat. She's looking at the sandwich bag with the kind of desperate hunger that Marcos recognizes because he's felt it himself. "Excuse me," the woman says quietly. "I'm sorry to bother you, but I haven't eaten in 2 days. Do you have any food you could spare? Anything at all?" Marcos looks at his son, 4 years old, hungry, not understanding why Christmas is going to be different this year. Then looks at the woman, cold, hungry, alone on Christmas Eve. He has one sandwich. He could say no. Should say no. Lucas needs to eat. They have nothing else. But Marcos can't. Because his own mother once told him, "We measure humanity by what we do when we have nothing left to give." And Marcos has nothing left to give except this one sandwich. "Of course," Marcos says, opening the bag and splitting the sandwich in half. He gives half to the woman, half to Lucas. "Merry Christmas." The woman takes the sandwich with shaking hands, tears in her eyes. "Thank you. God bless you. You don't know what this means." She eats quickly, gratefully, and then she does something strange. She looks at Marcos very carefully, like she's memorizing his face, and says, "What's your name? I'd like to remember the person who showed me kindness when I needed it most. Marcos Silva, and this is my son Lucas." "Marcos Silva," the woman repeats. "Thank you, Marcos. I won't forget this." This story has a CEO named Beatriz Almeida, who's been running her billion-dollar company for 20 years and has learned that the only way to know someone's true character is to see how they treat people who can't do anything for them. A woman who regularly disguises herself as homeless to test potential employees and business partners because she built her empire from nothing and refuses to promote people who lack basic human decency. The Christmas Eve where Beatrice was testing a different executive candidate and happened to witness Marcos, recently fired by her own company without her knowledge, split his last sandwich with a homeless woman, even though his own son was hungry. The phone call Marcos receives the next morning from an unknown number. "Mr. Silva, this is Beatriz Almeida, CEO of Sterling Enterprises. I'd like to discuss your recent termination and offer you a new position. Can you come to my office this morning?" Marcos's confusion and fear that this is some kind of scam or cruel joke. The meeting where Beatrice reveals she was the woman on the bench and that she'd witnessed his kindness. Her explanation that Carlos fired him without proper authorization and will be terminated himself for nepotism. And the job offer that changes everything. Director of Finance, 6-figure salary, full benefits including coverage for Lucas's medical needs, and a signing bonus large enough to cover 3 months of rent. What happens when the homeless woman you help turns out to, be a billionaire CEO who was testing your character? Subscribe now and hit that notification bell, because YouTube only shows the ending of this story to our most engaged viewers. If you're not subscribed, you might miss how this single act of kindness on Christmas Eve transforms into a family, a career, and a love story. Drop a comment telling us where in the world you're watching from, because we love connecting with our global community over these powerful stories about character and compassion. Don't miss what happens when a fired father shares his last sandwich and discovers that sometimes angels disguise themselves as people in need. to find out who's worth saving. Marcos Silva was fired at 10:47 a.m. on Christmas Eve. He knew the exact time because he was staring at the clock on the wall of Carlos Mendez's office, his manager's office, while Carlos delivered the news with all the warmth of someone reading a grocery list. "We're restructuring the accounting department," Carlos said, not meeting Marcos's eyes. "Your position is being eliminated effective immediately. You'll receive 2 weeks severance, and your final paycheck will be deposited by the 27th. Security will escort you out." "But—" Marcos felt his world tilting. "Carlos, I've been here 3 years. My performance reviews are excellent. I just finished the year-end audit ahead of schedule." "The decision's been made. I'm sorry, Marcos." He wasn't sorry. Marcos could see it in his expression, in the way Carlos was already looking at his computer screen, dismissing Marcos from his attention and his life. Security did escort Marcos out, a humiliating walk through the office with everyone watching while he carried his few personal items in a box. His coworker Ana hugged him at the elevator, whispering, "This is wrong. Everyone knows Carlos is just making room for his nephew. I'm so sorry, Marcos." At 11:30 a.m. on Christmas Eve, Marcos was standing on the sidewalk outside Sterling Enterprises with a cardboard box, no job, and a 4-year-old son waiting for him at daycare. Lucas. Marcos felt panic rising in his chest. He had $847 in his checking account. Rent was $1,200, due in 1 week. Lucas's asthma medication cost $340 per month, and he was due for a refill in 3 days. They had maybe 5 days of food at home if Marcos stretched everything and ate very little himself. 2 weeks of severance would help, but that wouldn't arrive until the 27th, 3 days away. And then what? Job. Hunting during the holidays. Supporting Lucas while unemployed. They'd been barely making it with Marcos's salary. Without it, they were going to drown. Marcos picked up Lucas from daycare at 3 p.m. His son ran to him with his usual enthusiasm, all smiles and energy, clutching a paper snowflake he'd made at preschool. "Popeye, look what I made! Miss Rosa said I did the best cutting. Can we hang it on our Christmas tree?" They didn't have a Christmas tree. Marcos hadn't been able to afford one this year. "It's beautiful, Lucas. We'll hang it somewhere special, I promise." They took the bus home to their small apartment in the suburb of São Paulo. It was nearly 5 p.m., and Lucas was complaining about being hungry. "Can we have dinner, Popeye? I'm so hungry. Are we having special Christmas food tonight?" Marcos looked in the refrigerator, some rice, beans, eggs, enough for a simple meal. But he'd been planning to stretch that food through the weekend, and now with no job, he needed to make everything last as long as possible. "How about we go to the park first?" Marcos suggested, grabbing the one sandwich he'd packed for his own lunch that morning and never eaten. "Get some fresh air before dinner?" "Okay, can I play on the swings?" "Of course." They walked to the small park 3 blocks from their apartment. It was 6 p.m. on Christmas Eve, and the park was mostly empty. Families were home preparing for Christmas dinner, for celebrations that Marcos and Lucas wouldn't be having this year. Marcos sat on a bench, exhausted and overwhelmed, trying to figure out their next move. Lucas played on the swings for a few minutes, then ran back, breathing hard. "Popeye, I'm really hungry now. Can we eat the sandwich?" Marcos looked at his son's small face, trusting and innocent, and completely unaware that their entire life was falling apart. He pulled out the sandwich, turkey and cheese, nothing fancy, but it was food. That's when he noticed the woman. She was sitting at the other end of the bench, maybe 10 feet away. Older, probably 50s or early 60s, with gray hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She wore clothes that had clearly seen better days. A thin jacket with a stain on the sleeve, worn jeans, shoes with holes. She was shivering slightly in the December evening cold. And she was watching the sandwich bag in Marcos's hands with an expression of desperate hunger that Marcos recognized immediately because he'd felt it himself during the worst days after Lucas's mother had left them. The woman caught Marcos looking and quickly looked away, embarrassed. Then quietly, "Excuse me, I'm sorry to bother you, but I haven't eaten in 2 days. Do you have any food you could spare? I don't need much. Just anything at all." Marcos looked at her, then at Lucas, then at the one sandwich that was supposed to be their dinner. He should say no. He needed to say no. Lucas was 4 years old and hungry, and they had almost no food at home and no money coming in until the 27th at the earliest. This woman was a stranger. Marcos had his own child to feed. He had every logical reason to keep the sandwich. But Marcos thought about his mother, dead now for 5 years, who'd raised him alone after his father left, who'd worked 3 jobs and still sometimes went hungry so Marcos could eat. She used to say, "We're not measured by what we do when we have plenty, meu filho. We're measured by what we do when we have nothing left to give. That's when our true character shows." Marcos had nothing left to give, but he couldn't look at this hungry woman and keep the food. He opened the sandwich bag, carefully split the sandwich in half, gave 1/2 to Lucas and 1/2 to the woman. "Here," he said simply. "Merry Christmas." The woman took the sandwich with shaking hands, tears welling in her eyes. "Thank you. God bless you. You don't know. You have no idea what this means to me. It's okay. I hope things get better for you." She ate quickly, gratefully, like someone who really hadn't eaten in days. When she finished, she wiped her eyes and looked at Marcos carefully. Really looked at him, like she was memorizing his face. "What's your name?" she asked. "I'd like to remember the person who showed me kindness when I needed it most. Marcos Silva, and this is my son Lucas." "Lucas," the woman repeated, smiling at the boy. "What a handsome young man. How old are you, Lucas?" 4. Lucas held up 4 fingers proudly. "And I'm going to be 5 in March." 4 years old. That's a wonderful age. The woman looked back at Marcos. "Thank you, Marcos Silva. I won't forget this. I promise you that." She stood up slowly, nodded to them both, and walked away into the evening. Lucas tugged on Marcos's sleeve. "Papai, that was nice. You shared our sandwich with the sad lady." "Yes, she needed it. But now we only have half a sandwich. That's okay. Half a sandwich shared with someone who needs it is worth more than a whole sandwich kept to ourselves." Marcos hugged Lucas close. "Come on, let's go home and make some rice and beans for dinner." That night, after Lucas was asleep, Marcos sat at their small kitchen table and tried not to cry. He'd given away half their dinner to a stranger. He had no job. Christmas was tomorrow and he had nothing to give his son. No presents, no special meal, nothing. He'd failed. As a father, as a provider, as everything. At 9 a.m. on Christmas Day, Marcos's phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer. Probably a scam call, or worse, a debt collector. He was 2 months behind on Lucas's medical bills. But something made him pick up. "Hello? Mr. Marcos Silva?" "Yes, who is this?" "This is Beatriz Almeida. I'm the CEO of Sterling Enterprises. I'd like to discuss your recent termination and offer you a new position. Can you come to my office this morning?" Marcos felt his blood run cold. This had to be a cruel joke. The CEO of Sterling Enterprises, a woman worth billions, who'd built the company from nothing and was legendary in São Paulo business circles, was calling him on Christmas morning? What? I don't understand. Is this real?" "It's very real, Mr. Silva. I'll explain everything when you arrive. I'm at the office now. Can you come in within the hour? I'll have security expecting you. And please, bring your son. I have a feeling he shouldn't be alone today." Yes. Okay. I'll be there." The line went dead. Marcos stared at his phone, completely bewildered. Then he looked at Lucas, who was eating cereal at the kitchen table. "Lucas, we need to get dressed. We're going somewhere." "Where, Papai?" "I have no idea." They took the bus to the Sterling Enterprises headquarters, a gleaming tower in the business district that Marcos had walked out of in shame just yesterday. Security was indeed expecting them, and they were escorted not to the accounting floor but to the top level, the executive suite where Marcos had never been allowed. They were shown into an enormous corner, office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking São Paulo, and sitting behind a massive desk was a woman Marcos recognized from business magazines and news articles. Beatriz Almeida, except Marcos also recognized her from somewhere else. The park bench, the worn clothes, the desperate hunger. "You," Marcos breathed. "You're the woman from yesterday, the one who asked for food." Beatriz smiled. "Hello again, Marcos. And hello, Lucas. Thank you both for coming. Please sit down." Marcos sat, his mind reeling. Lucas climbed onto his lap, looking around the fancy office with wide eyes. "I don't understand," Marcos said. "You're a billionaire. Why were you dressed like someone homeless?" "Because I needed to see something, to test something." Beatrice leaned forward. "Marcos, I've been running Sterling Enterprises for 20 years. I built this company from nothing. I started with a small accounting firm in my garage and grew it into what you see now. And in 20 years I've learned that the only way to know someone's true character is to see how they treat people who can't do anything for them. People who can't advance their career or boost their social status, or offer them anything in return." "You were testing me?" "Not originally. I was actually testing someone else yesterday, a different executive candidate who I'd set up to encounter me in my disguise. He failed spectacularly, by the way. Walked right past me without a glance." Beatrice's expression softened. "But then I saw you, sitting on that bench with your son, and I watched you split your last sandwich. And I know it was your last sandwich, Marcos. I could see it in your face. To give half to a stranger, to someone who couldn't possibly help you in any way. That told me everything I needed to know about your character. But she was hungry. I couldn't." "Most people could. Most people do. Every single day people walk past others in need and convince themselves it's not their problem. That they have their own struggles, their own children to feed, their own lives to worry about. And they're not wrong. Those are all valid concerns. But Marcos, you had every reason to keep that sandwich. You'd just been fired. You have a young son to feed. You were clearly struggling. And yet you still shared. That's not common. That's exceptional." Marcos didn't know what to say. "I did some research last night," Beatrice continued. "I found out that Carlos Mendez terminated you yesterday, without proper authorization from HR or upper management. I also discovered he's been systematically removing competent employees to make room for family members. That ends today. Carlos no longer works for Sterling Enterprises." "You fired him?" "I did. And I'm offering you his position." Beatrice pulled out a folder. "Director of Finance. You'll oversee the entire accounting department. The salary is $280,000 annually. Full benefits including premium health coverage. I noticed from your file that your son has medical needs, and there's a signing bonus of $15,000 to help you get back on your feet. Additionally, I'd like to cover Lucas's medical expenses directly through the company. No child should go without medication because of insurance gaps." Marcos felt tears streaming down his face. He couldn't speak. "Papai, why are you crying?" Lucas asked, concerned. "Happy tears, Lucas. Very happy tears." Beatrice came around the desk and knelt down to Lucas's level. "Lucas, your papai is a very good man. He helped me when I needed help, and now I'm going to help him. Is that okay with you?" Lucas nodded solemnly. "Papai always helps people. He says that's what good people do." "He's absolutely right." Beatrice looked back at Marcos. "What do you say, Marcos? Will you accept the position?" "Yes," Marcos managed to choke out. "Yes. Thank you. I don't know how to thank you." "You already thanked me. Yesterday." with a sandwich and kindness. Beatrice stood up. You start January 2nd. Take the rest of the week to settle in, spend time with Lucas, have a proper Christmas. The signing bonus will be in your account by this afternoon. And Marcos? She smiled. Welcome to Sterling Enterprises, the real Sterling Enterprises, where character matters more than credentials. Over the next 3 years, Marcos thrived in his new role. He reorganized the accounting department, implemented new systems, saved the company millions in efficiency improvements. He was good at his job, exceptional even, and everyone knew he'd earned his position. But he also spent a lot of time with Beatrice. She was his mentor, teaching him about business strategy and leadership. She attended Lucas's preschool graduation, his first day of elementary school, his birthday parties. She became part of their lives in a way that felt natural and right. And slowly, carefully, Marcos realized he was falling in love with her. Not because she was wealthy or powerful or had saved his career, but because she was brilliant and kind and funny. Because she played dinosaurs with Lucas for hours without complaint. Because she saw Marcos as an equal despite the age and wealth difference. Because she made him feel valued and respected and loved. I think I'm in love with Beatrice, Marcos told Anna one day at work. She'd been promoted to senior accountant and they'd stayed friends. Obviously, you have been for like 2 years. The real question is, when are you going to tell her? Tell her? Anna, she's my boss. She's a billionaire CEO. You're the director of finance who she personally recruited. The man who impressed her so much with his character that she fired someone to give him a job. The father of a child she clearly adores. Marcos, I've seen the way she looks at you. Trust me. Tell her. On the 3rd anniversary of the day Marcos was fired and hired, Beatrice invited Marcos and Lucas to her home for dinner. It was a beautiful house, not ostentatious but comfortable and warm, filled with books and art and pictures of family. After dinner, after Lucas had fallen asleep on the couch watching a movie, Beatrice and Marcos sat on her back patio with wine, looking at the city lights. 3 years, Beatrice said quietly. Since that Christmas Eve. Since you shared your sandwich with a stranger. Best decision I ever made, obviously. Marcos, I need to tell you something. Beatrice turned to face him. When I saw you on that bench, when you split your sandwich, I knew you were special. I knew you had the kind of character I wanted in my company. But I didn't know. She stopped, took a breath. I didn't know I was going to fall in love with you. Marcos's heart stopped. What? I'm in love with you. I have been for over a year. Maybe longer. I kept telling myself it was inappropriate. You work for me. There's a power imbalance. I'm older than you. But Marcos, I can't keep pretending. You're brilliant and kind and an amazing father. You challenge me. You make me laugh. You see me as a person instead of just a CEO. And She smiled. I think about you constantly. I want to be part of your life. Part of Lucas's life. If you'll have me. Are you serious? Marcos felt like he was dreaming. Completely serious. But I understand if you don't feel the same way, or if this is too complicated. Marcos kissed her. Right there on her patio, with the stars overhead and the city lights below, he kissed Beatriz Almeida and felt everything click into place. I love you too, he said when they broke apart. I've been in love with you for so long, but I thought you were out of my league, that you'd never see me that way. Out of your league? Marcos, you're the man who shared his last sandwich with a stranger on Christmas Eve. You're not out of anyone's league. You set the league. They dated for 6 months, keeping it quiet from the office at first. Then Beatrice transferred Marcos to a new division, still director level, still prestigious, but no longer directly reporting to her to eliminate any conflict of interest. They went public with their relationship at the company Christmas party, and to their surprise, everyone was supportive. We all knew anyway, Anna said with a laugh. You two look at each other like lovesick teenagers. It's adorable. 1 year after they started dating, Beatrice proposed to Marcos on the anniversary of the day they met, Christmas Eve, at the same park bench. 4 years ago, you sat here and showed me what real kindness looks like, Beatrice said, down on one knee while Lucas bounced excitedly nearby. You changed my life with a sandwich and a generous heart. Marcos Silva, will you marry me? Will you let me spend the rest of my life proving that I'm worthy of the kindness you showed me? Yes, Marcos said through tears. 1,000 times, yes. And Lucas, Beatrice turned to the 7-year-old. Will you let me be your maman? Not replacing your birth mother, but as someone who loves you and wants to be part of your family? Lucas threw his arms around Beatrice. You're already my maman. You've been my mama forever. You come to my school stuff and you play with me and you make Popeye happy. Of course I want you to be my maman officially. They got married 3 months later. Small ceremony, mostly family, with Lucas as the ring bearer wearing a tiny tuxedo he'd picked out himself. During the vows, Beatrice said, Marcos, I spent 20 years building a company, making money, gaining success. But I didn't understand what wealth really meant until I met you. Real wealth isn't money. It's character. It's compassion. It's being the kind of person who shares their last sandwich with a stranger. You showed me that. You saved me. I promise to spend every day being worthy of you. Marcos said, Beatrice, you disguised yourself as someone in need to test people's character. But what you really did was give me a chance to show you who I was when I thought no one important was watching. You saw me at my lowest moment, and you didn't judge me for being fired or struggling. You saw my heart. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for loving me. Thank you for being Lucas's mama. 5 years later, they had 2 more children. Twin girls that Lucas doted on like a perfect big brother. Marcos was now COO of Sterling Enterprises, a position he'd earned through years of excellent work. Beatrice had expanded the company internationally, but every Christmas Eve, they went back to that park bench. All 5 of them, Beatrice, Marcos, Lucas, now 12, and the 5-year-old twins. Tell us the story again, the twins always demanded, about how Popeye gave Mama his sandwich. So they would tell it, about the firing, the hunger, the decision to share, the phone call on Christmas morning that changed everything. Best sandwich I ever ate, Beatrice always said. Best decision I ever made, Marcos always responded. Best maman ever, Lucas always added. My angel maman who was testing Popeye but really fell in love with him. And the twins would giggle and ask to hear it again because it was their favorite story, the one about how their family was built on a sandwich, a park bench, and a man who chose kindness when he had nothing left to give. Best test ever failed, by someone else, and passed, by Marcos. Best disguise ever. Best sandwich ever shared. Best Christmas morning phone call ever. Best promotion from fired to director. Best love story that started with hunger and ended with family. And Beatrice never stopped testing people. But after Marcos, she'd learned something important. The best people reveal themselves when they think no one's watching, when they have nothing to gain, when they're at their absolute lowest, and still choose kindness. Marcos Silva had been all of those things on Christmas Eve 4 years ago, and he'd been exactly what Beatrice had been looking for her entire life. Not an employee, but a partner. Not a success story, but a good man. Not someone who wanted something from her, but someone who saw a hungry stranger and shared his last sandwich without a second thought. Best character test ever. Best man ever found. Best family ever built from one moment of pure, uncommon kindness. If this story touched your heart, let us know in the comments. What score would you give this story from 0 to 10? And where in the world are you watching from? We love connecting with our global community. Share this with someone who needs to hear that CEOs who test character in disguise are either brilliant or crazy, that sharing your last sandwich can change your entire life, that being fired on Christmas Eve can be the beginning instead of the end, that 4-year-olds who call billionaire CEOs Mamai Anjo are the sweetest thing ever, and that sometimes the person you help when you have nothing is exactly the person who will give you everything. Subscribe if you believe in single fathers who choose kindness over survival, in CEOs who value character over credentials, in park bench meetings that change destinies, in Christmas morning phone calls that sound fake but are real, in 7-year-olds who recognize their mother's heart regardless of biology, and in the idea that we're measured not by what we do when we have plenty, but by what we do when we have nothing left to give.